He has a cult following cutting across India's vast socio-economic spectrum. His fans throng cinemas when his movies release. More than 100 films old, the mainstay of manic action films and tear-jerking cinema alike. For many of his fans, he is simply Bhai, an elder brother, a man of goodwill, a philanthropist. Today, though, he is behind bars, convicted of killing 2 endangered blackbuck antelopes nearly 20 years ago and sentenced to 5 years in jail. Ironically, the situation isn't new to a man who is one of India's biggest superstars. He's been on the wrong side of the law before, has escaped conviction in a hit-and-run case, and has been acquitted in other cases relating to the poaching incident before. He survived, and how? Tonight, we look at the case, its history and its impact on Indian society and the actor himself. Good evening and welcome to The Fine Print. I'm Aisha Sindhu. Salman Khan's lawyers have already applied for bail. The matter will come up for hearing tomorrow. But tonight, the megastar is crashing in jail. Here's a recap of the day's events.
He is one of the most successful stars of the Indian film industry. But Salman Khan's controversial past has caught up with the superstar yet again. A court in Jodhpur has found Salman Khan guilty of killing 2 blackbucks. He has been sentenced to 5 years in jail and a penalty of 10,000 rupees has also been levied on him. The case dates back to the night of 2nd October 1998. Back then, the superstar was shooting his film Hum Saath Saath Hai in Jodhpur. His co-stars Saif Ali Khan, Sonali Bendre, Tabu and Neelam too were charged in the case, but they have all been acquitted.
सलमान खान को 9/1 में दोषी मानते हुए 5 वर्ष की सजा और 10,000 रुपए जुर्माने से आरोपित किया गया है तथा क्योंकि 5 वर्ष की सजा हुई है उसका गिरफ्तारी वारंट बन चुका है और उसे सेंट्रल जेल भेजा जाएगा.
The verdict comes 20 years after the first complaint was filed. Salman Khan has been convicted under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Under this law, hunting an endangered species of antelope can lead to jail time for up to 6 years. Now, Salman has 2 options. He can file an appeal against the sentence in the Sessions Court or the High Court. The star can also apply for a suspension of the sentence, and Salman Khan's lawyers have already moved for bail.
It's up to the state to decide. If they think that it's a fit case in which appeal is to be filed, obviously they will file their appeal and it is their prerogative to decide. But so far as Salman Khan is concerned, he has left with no other option except to prefer an appeal against the conviction.
Salman is one of India's biggest stars. His films are among the top box office earners of all time, and fans refuse to accept the court's verdict. A lot of money is riding on Salman Khan. His last release, Tiger Zinda Hai, grossed more than $52 million and his next film is due for a release in August. But for now, the star will have to spend some time in jail. Bureau Report, WION.
So indeed, it is jail time for the megastar Salman Khan. Joining me this evening to talk about the case, its impact and what it means, really speaking, for both the actor at the center of it all and all the movies that are riding on it, and of course the impact of the message that's been sent out today. KTS Tulsi, senior lawyer of the Supreme Court of India, is joining us from New Delhi. Dalip Tahil, noted actor, joining us from Mumbai, and Gaurang Kant, senior lawyer, joining us from New Delhi. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you all for making the time to speak with us here at WION. Mr. Tulsi, if I could come to you first, what do you make of the suggestion that the sentencing for Salman Khan was rather harsh, that 5 years was almost as good as 6 years, the maximum punishment that this kind of case attracts?
Yes, I agree with that. I think it is a bit too harsh because we have a very stringent Wildlife Conservation Act, but that is mainly directed against the poachers who are killing the endangered species, the smugglers, the traders in animal parts and bones, etc. Now the question is, Salman Khan has none of that. He has done an illegal act. But for the purpose of sentencing, this kind of a case, I think the whole object of law is to reform somebody and to make him realize his mistake. For that, he could be actually dealt with under the Probation Offenders Act and asked to act as a pro bono act, as the ambassador, the brand ambassador of conservation of Blackbuck or of all the endangered species. He could really do far more for the conservation activity by being on probation rather than being in jail.
Okay.
So I don't know why the option of probation was not even explored.
Okay, Gaurankant, a lot of people are saying that this case demonstrates the power of celebrity in India, that Salman Khan has, utilized the last 20 years to sort of change his brand image altogether. The PR machinery has kicked in. Do you agree to that contention that this case is, in many ways, typifies the power of being a celebrity in a country like India?
Well, absolutely not. If you look at the earlier poaching case of Salman Khan too, there was a conviction in that case, and then ultimately it was the High Court which had set aside the trial court as well as the session court's order. So I think Salman has already faced something of this sort earlier too. There was a conviction of 5 years, there was a fine of 25,000. And I think a similar order has been passed here too, where he has been convicted again for 5 years and a fine of 10,000 has been imposed upon him. So I think he has to go through the same drill which he actually underwent on an earlier occasion. So nothing really has changed as far as, these poaching cases are concerned. And I pretty much agree with Mr. Tulsi's view to the extent that he's really not a poacher, and we should really look into the whole idea why this enactment has been put in place. And for somebody like Salman to be given 5 years is pretty harsh, I feel. And he's not really a convict in that sense, or somebody who indulges in poaching or any activity of that sort. So I think the conviction is definitely a little more stringent than what could have been anticipated.
Okay,
and we can also see that here there were many other co-accused, but only Salman has been convicted. So we really have to go through the judgment to really see what prevailed on the mind of the judge while convicting him for 5 years.
Right. We'll explore that a little further on the show. There was also mention of recurrent bad behavior that was made mention of. But before we get to that, Dilip Tahil, I want to ask you. What I'm gauging from my other two guests is that perhaps his superstar status, Salman Khan's superstar status, sort of set him apart, set him aside, if you will, for this harsh and stringent verdict. But do you think that worked against him in this case?
Well, allow me to first wish you all a very good evening, and it's an honor to be with these very distinguished panelists. Yes, I think so. I mean, I think this is a clear example, unfortunately, of the celebrity aspect of Salman's life actually working against him, because as both the senior lawyers have said, I'm completely in agreement with that. 20 years later, I mean, it is clearly demonstrative. The judge, in his wisdom, is demonstrating to everybody that, look, because he's a celebrity, he's not going to get away with it. But I think he's gone to the other extent by actually giving him a harsher punishment than is actually due, as the gentleman had mentioned. I mean, here was an opportunity for someone to actually, use Salman's celebrity to rehabilitate, and as Tulsi ji said, to make him get involved with endangered species and actually do community work and contribute. I think there's an opportunity missed in this judgment, and I completely agree with Mr. Tulsi and the other gentleman. Right. That it seems that it's demonstrative in, look, I'm not sparing the celebrity.
Okay, we'll talk a little further about that aspect of the case a little in a bit. I'll request all three of you to stay on with us here on the broadcast. But for viewers joining in right now, how exactly did things fall apart for Salman Khan? How did he find himself facing the heat in a Jodhpur courtroom, surrounded by irate members of the Bishnoi community? Here's a breakdown of what all has happened between that fateful night in October 1998 and today's judgment. 20 years ago, a multi-starrer Bollywood extravaganza dazzled the silver screen. And 2 decades later, the movie, or at least the stars therein, are making headlines once again. The lead star of the film, Salman Khan, was accused of poaching Blackbucks while shooting for the film in Rajasthan in 1998. 9 years later, he was sentenced by the Rajasthan High Court to 5 years in prison. Superstar was forced to spend 5 days in a jail in Jodhpur, was granted bail later. Then in 2016, the High Court acquitted the actor in the poaching cases, leading to a huge public outcry. Later that same year, the state government submitted an appeal in the Supreme Court, which decided to fast-track the case. 20 years after the first complaint was filed in the case, Salman Khan has been found guilty and slapped with a 5-year jail sentence. His co-stars, however, have been acquitted. Bureau Report, WION. Okay, so that's how things panned out in the last 20 years. Mr. Tulsi, one of the things that we've heard since the quantum of sentence was pronounced on different platforms is that a strong message has been sent out with this verdict, with this sentencing. But the 20-year delay, does that sort of dilute the impact of that message altogether?
Yes, I mean, you are punishing somebody after 20 years. It doesn't speak well of the institution of justice, because after all, if it is such a serious offence, why did it take 20 years? I believe that you see, the bigger picture is that it's a youthful misadventure. He was 20 years younger at that time. It's a youthful misadventure. He's not a depraved character. Even in Upar case, where there was direct proximity between the actions of the management and 59 people losing their lives in a cinema hall fire, the owners only spent a few months in jail. 59 people lost their lives. A human being's value seems to be much less than... I'm not belittling this offence. I'm only saying that after all, ultimate, the greatest of species on earth, we are human beings. The human form, the human body is most sacred, and for that we punish somebody with either nothing. Right. How many people have been killed, lynched, only because they were suspected of carrying beef or cows, and no action taken against the killers. In fact, the families of the victims are still suffering. Cases are registered against them.
Right. But
so there is a warped sense of
justice. Sure, there's a baying of blood for blood that does take place, definitely, Gaurang Khan. But I do wonder, is it fair for us to compare cases, to look at Upar? Mr. Tulsi, of course, in all his wisdom, pointing out that, there are different degrees of impact in different cases. But 20 years ago, Salman Khan was 32 years old. I mean, we wouldn't describe that as youthful misadventure. A crime was committed. A community's, religious sentiments were heard back then as well. The Bishnois look at the Blackbuck as a revered animal. They pray to it. Keeping all those factors in mind, wouldn't the impact have to be judged by the specifics of this case, the fact that there were people whose sentiments were hurt?
Well, I think justice delayed is justice denied. So 20 years definitely makes a huge difference in the entire thing, and I think it is an integral fault of the Anglo system which we follow. So trial definitely takes a lot of time in India, and it's unfortunately people who have to really face that ultimately become the sufferer of the system. And I think here this 20 years definitely makes a huge difference and impact in Salman's life. But the court should not have even lost light of the fact that what the person has been doing. But I'm sure there was evidence which was very incriminating, on which the court has gone ahead and convicted him. And as far as the sentiments are concerned, we are not really concerned with the sentiments. We are more concerned with the action, whether he can actually be convicted, because I believe there is an eyewitness in this case, and how credential was the testimony of the eyewitness, and all those things must have prevailed on the mind of the court, and that is the reason why this sentence has come forward. But at the same time, we will see whether the High Court or the Sessions Court is, probably they're going to move the Session Court in revision, and we'll see if the court is going to appreciate the evidence or is going to look it in the other way, and maybe the judgment will be overturned as it has been done in the Chinkara case. So we have seen something similar to this sort earlier too in Salman's case. So I'm quite hopeful that probably Salman might get some sort of relief from the higher courts, and something good will come out for him.
Okay, and I'm sure there are a number of people out there who are hoping for the absolute opposite to take place. Dalip Tahil, I'll come to you in a second. Since we brought up the phrase "justice delayed is justice denied," it's obviously been bandied around quite a bit today, but it isn't a concept unknown to India. It's a contention leveled against a judiciary whose wheels churn notoriously slowly. Salman Khan's is a case in point. It's no secret, though, that India's judicial system faces a massive backlog. As of 2016, more than 27 million cases were pending in various courts of India. The situation is only exacerbated further by an acute shortage of judges. As many as 4,500 benches are reportedly empty. The district and sub-courts of India face the biggest crisis, 21,017. That is the sanction strength for judges in these courts. But there are only a little over 16,000 judges available. Now that's a shortfall of more than 4,000 judges, and the vacancies might not be filled anytime soon. As a result, there are more than 2 crore 30 lakh or 23 million cases pending before all district and sub-courts of India. The situation in the high courts doesn't inspire too much confidence either. Ideally, a little over 1,000 judges are required in India's high courts, but India has only 615 judges to hear cases. The math adds up to 464 vacancies. The high court judges currently face a backlog of more than 38 lakh or 3.8 million cases. When it comes to the highest court of the land, that's the Supreme Court, it needs 7 more judges to complete the sanction strength of 31. There's a backlog of 60,000 cases with the apex court currently. Dalip Tahil, I wanted to ask you, the question of celebrity comes up quite often, and whether celebrities should be held to higher standards. What's been happening also is this sort of, attempt at looking at Salman Khan's post-Troubles image remakeover, if you will, his philanthropy, his being human. But can that undo what's wrong in front of the law, whether it happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago, whether he was 20 years old or 50 years old? The fact is that if something wrong was done, and he has made attempts to change his image since then, that cannot take away from the fact that a crime was committed.
No, obviously it cannot take away from that, and that is, no one is suggesting that it takes away from that. The fact is, as Tulsi ji quite accurately said, the idea of punishment is to be able to reform a person. Now, in these 20 years, I think there's a very good chance, because I know Salman personally, that he has made a lot of effort to be able to improve and to be a different person, and he has done that in his charity. So clearly there's a shift in what he was 20 years ago. I think it should be considered. I'm not saying that everything should be pardoned because of that. That's not the point. But it has been 20 years, and for a layman, I don't want to emphasize the point because the 2 senior lawyers have already talked about the judicial system, so it's not in my place to talk about it. But for a layman to see 20 years for a trial, and after that you're given such a harsh sentence, it's obviously, it's very clear that the honorable judge has gone out to make an example and to be absolutely play it safe so that nobody can point fingers at him if there's any favoritism. So he's actually gone, I feel, towards the other end of the spectrum and really given a very harsh punishment.
Okay, and one can't take away from the fact that there is a lot of pressure riding on people involved in cases that involve celebrity of the kind that Salman Khan is in India. We'll have to leave it at that, gentlemen.